And 1640 PWPR, 1640 PWPR, Facebook.com/1640 PWPR. Joining me right now, ladies and gentlemen, on the New Search Live line, you're probably wondering, people watching the YouTube version, why the Heartland Wrestling Association logo is appearing on one side of the screen and Phil Stamper's picture is appearing on the other. Well, I guess now we could call him professional wrestler, actor, Hoovian, and now promoter? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Phil Stamper. Phil, how are you doing this evening?
I am good. How are you, sir?
I'm here, man. I don't have the hour and a half drive ahead of me that you mentioned, but I'm doing good nonetheless. um,
But I actually thought I would be home by now, so.
we all get snagged up at work, man. I mean, I take phone calls here, and like, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a work from home job, but even still, you think you're going to get you're 2 minutes away from getting off work, and all of a sudden a 30-minute phone call trying to get to some old lady with an iPad's internet comes in. You know, it snags you. Word for people: if you're going to buy somebody a gift, show them how to use it first. But we had you on a couple weeks ago, and you said you had a bit of news for us. And late, I want to say, well, actually, it was early this week that news came out. You have purchased, and are now the quote-unquote promoter, I guess, of Heartland Wrestling Federation. Um, why don't you give everybody a little bit of a background? I'm going to give you the floor here as long as you want it. Give everybody a little background of what HWA is for those who may have not have heard of it before, and how the sale came to fall, like how this fell into your lap, so to speak.
Wow. Heartland Wrestling Association has been around for about 20 years. It has a tremendous legacy in the history of modern professional wrestling. And it's interesting to think about it because now it is a property that is not necessarily as known, which is more interesting to me because in the last 10 years, it's developed superstars like Sami Callihan, now Solomon Crowe in NXT, Jon Moxley, who's now Dean Ambrose in the WWE, Nigel McGuinness, who's Nigel McGuinness. It has flourished so many great talents who are in modern day wrestling. But then if you go back in HWA's history, it was one of the first developmental territories as well. It was a developmental opportunity for both WCW and WWE. So it has a great wrestling legacy as well. And I do think it has a tremendous place in the history of professional wrestling. And for the modern era, if you will, it was one of the first independent promotions that many fans never heard of outside of the WWE and WCW and ECW at the time because of its exposure on both MTV with True Life, I Want to Be a Pro Wrestler, and I think it was on 2020. So there was a lot of attention to it for this promotion out of Cincinnati. It was ran by Les Thatcher. Les Thatcher himself, along with Harley Race and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, both do, or all three, do an entity called Elite Pro Wrestling Training. And right now they travel the country and give insight and trainings on professional wrestling to talent around not just the country, but around the world. And it was started by Les Thatcher. HWA was. So it has, again, such a legacy and such a component in the history of professional wrestling.
I mean, people who don't know, I'm going to read off some names here. Mike Sanders, Shannon Moore, Victoria, Lisa Moretti, I think it is. The Hardy Boys spent time there. Charlie and Russ Haas both got their start there. Bill DeMont got his start there. Elix Skipper, B.J. Whitmer, Matt Stryker, Shark Boy, Cody Hawk, Chad Collier. I mean, a who's who of names have came through that camp and through that promotion in recent years. And there was a rumor going around in the fall of 2014 that they were going to cease operations up in that I don't know what you would call that Midwestern area. It's not really Midwest. It's not New England, and it's not really Ohio Valley. It's kind of like that one little group of states up there. But
it is the heartland, and they do consider themselves Midwest. And I have no reason to disagree with that because that's where my family's from. My family's in that sort of Dayton, Cincinnati, Louisville, Indianapolis.
Nice. But they were going to move out of that area. The old owners were, and in fall of 2014, they had announced that they were moving to Georgia, and now in 2015, it gets sold to you. What happened in that little bit of a that 6 month time spring, or almost a year time frame there?
So, and I don't know necessarily the full circumstance that caused the previous owner to move out of the Cincinnati area and then move south. I know the situation now was that there was a personal family situation for him. He was looking to mobilize very quickly and sell the property. When I saw it up, I really at first thought, wow, this is a great opportunity for someone. Again, be a component of that legacy in the history of professional wrestling. The name Heartland Wrestling Association, I think, means a lot to a lot of people in the world of wrestling. But also the video library. I mean, it's so comprehensive of all those talents that you just mentioned. And I was like, wow, it would be a great find for somebody. And as I talked with him a little bit online about, how was it going, any hits yet, I was honestly interested in I was curious myself, what could be the possibilities here. And he let me know no one really was biting on the property, which was very surprising to me. And he then was going to parse it out and sort of, I'll sell this for this and this for this and this for this and this for this. And that sort of hit me in a place, because I'm like, that would be a shame to separate the name from the legacy, from the property that would make a promotion.
You don't want to see the video library go into a place like WWE who would never even use it.
Well, I don't want to say that either, and I'll have a reason for that in a moment. But yeah, I want to keep it together. I think there's a tremendous potential in that video library. I think there's a tremendous potential in that name.
Right.
And I thought, it needs to stay together. So I made an offer. It was not as high. People have asked me, like, we saw that he was trying to sell these things off separately for X, and I was like, well, that's true. I did not make him X. I think I came in with a good deal for both of us. And I was very happy that I was the one that, in the end, won the bid.
I want to go back because I did a little bit of research here, and the guy who posted this, I don't know who the previous owner was, but the guy who had posted this on Twitter was like, I don't know if it was joking in a tweet, but I read a tweet by the guy. It's on the Heartland Wrestling Promotions Twitter page, I believe, unless you've taken it down. It's for sale, one wrestling promotion. You get X, Y, and Z if you buy in. I mean, is that pretty much how you found out about this?
Actually, because of my work as Nate Cyan, I do so much press writing and putting up stuff. I'm a member of a number of different Facebook groups. And I actually saw somebody else posted in one of those Facebook groups saying, hey, this just got posted on Heartland's page. And I was like, wow, that's odd. And I went to the page because, I thought it could be a prank at first. And then looked into it and was like, oh, wow. And so I want to say that the sort of the trail of the timeline that I saw was Wednesday I saw it. I actually tagged other people who I thought might be interested. Thursday, I followed up with him. I made a very low offer, to be honest. He countered. Friday, I made another offer, and he accepted. And that Saturday, he drove from Georgia and met me in Virginia, and we made the deal. Joe, are you there?
I'm here. Sorry. I had to mute the microphone because sometimes the feedback from the headset could go into the mic and cause an echo, and I didn't want that for us. But I mean, it's crazy that the sale actually took place in Virginia, of all places. I mean, I guess it's kind of like a common meeting place for the two of you. I mean, kind of a halfway deal. But I mean, still, it's to think that hey, let's drive halfway and do the deal there. I mean, no attorneys involved. No real big paperwork, just you hand me the money and I'll hand you a promotion. That's kind of crazy to think about in this day and age.
there is a bill of sale involved, so there is some legitimacy that we had to do to it, and the notary, and some of those kind of formal things that we have to do. But yeah, and that's also to a degree what made this so appealing. That there, again, that legacy of Heartland, I think there is so much potential with this property, and there's so much great talent that have walked through the doors, and I think there's so much talent out there. I think one of the things that, when I've talked about other promotions that I have previously worked with, even in more recent history, I've always said, there's enough great talent out there that you could have 5 absolutely stupendous promotions out there without batting an eye. There's that much great talent out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's at that point again where, especially where Heartland's positioned, primarily that ran primarily out of the Cincinnati area, there's easy linkages to so many talents because you're literally in a crossroads of so many places.
I mean, it's Ohio, it's Michigan, it's parts of Kentucky, like you were mentioning. What states are you looking to cover? Are you looking to go beyond those core group of states with this? Are you looking to, I mean, I know it's very, very early, and you say you're not really planning to run an event, and I'm sure you've only owned the promotion less than a week, so, but what are your plans to stick to that core group of states?
And so a couple of different responses to that. First, absolutely, I'm not going to go into this blind. I'm not going to rush in and just go, hey, let's have an event for the sake of having an event. To me, even if, let's say I didn't go the direction of Heartland, I've been looking to run something for a long time. And I've never wanted it to be, let's just throw up a ring and let's just see what happens. Because that never succeeds. And so you have to build a promotion that is stable, that has a strong foundation, that is able to move itself forward. But it's also called Heartland Wrestling Association. So where that name is definitely known around the United States, and actually I've gotten a great following and interest from people in England about what's going to happen next. I feel it belongs in the Heartland, to be honest. So when you say, like, where am I looking to run? Well, yeah, I am looking to run in the Cincinnati area, in Indiana. But I'm open to some opportunities. I have a lot of groundwork. Like you said, I've owned this company for a week and a half. So there's a lot of groundwork before any event is run. And again, regardless of the fact of it being HWA, before putting on an event, there's so much you need to do. You need to scout your venue. Do you have a crew? Because no one person can run a promotion by themselves. Even if you have a venue, what is the production element going to be like? How are you running the production? Do you have camera guys? Do you have the appropriate lighting? Which, granted, came with the sale, so hey, I left that there. But and even then, I have lighting. I don't know if the venue will have the rigging to support the lighting, because that's another purchase I need to make. So it really is going to depend on the groundwork now that I have in front of me. The most immediate thing for me, honestly, is the video library. And I say that, and I think people get a little callous when I say that, and I don't mean that in a cold way. HWA has 20 years of footage.
Yeah.
If there is anything to immediately, let's face it, wrestling is a business, and I think people forget that sometimes we need to treat it as a business.
Absolutely.
And be financially smart about things. That's where the revenue is going to come from right away. Unfortunately, though I have all of the physical footage, it really needs to be organized. There is no catalog. And now some people will say, well, you can go online and find the results of all their live events. So they had a mix of things. HWA for a very long time ran weekly events, and out of those weekly events created weekly television. But they didn't necessarily go, here's our 2-hour event. We somehow magically crammed it into 1 hour of time and put it every week on television. So there was editing done. I have footage from the television shows, but then they also had, I'm going to say roughly bi-monthly, quarterly, bigger sized events. So like your television events led up to a bigger event, which is a great model. But there's
it's kind
no
of like
real catalog.
Sorry, I
right?
hate to interrupt. That's kind of what TNA is doing right now. How your television, your little event, little event, little event, big event on TV that we call Destination X or something like that.
Right. And the television events or the televised shows did not or do not have a catalog. So
Wow.
no one can find the results of the live events that were held weekly to make the television show. There's nothing that says, well, on this episode of this television, this is what you would see. It's also largely not for sale. It's never been for sale. So I think there is a better opportunity to put it out in front of the face of fans, especially from that area that grew up watching it. Not even growing up, because as recent as 2010 they had television. So a very recent fan base was watching John Moxley and watching Sami Callihan and watching Nigel McGuinness and Matt Stryker and Pepper Parks, and oh my God, the amount of talent that came through there. That's in their recent history. And to see that, wait a minute, this has never been put together in some fashion. I don't even know what the final fashion should be of it, but so it needs to be put together, so it can be better showcased.
I wanted to ask you about you. I'm going to ask about you personally, and if you want to tell me to shut my mouth up about it, I will. You released a video a long time ago, and you know probably what video I'm going to be promoting or putting over here, and it's on your YouTube page called For the Boys, I think it was called, where you talk about promoters and how, one who promotes is the famous thing that you say in that thing. And that video has stuck with me all these years because it's 100% accurate. Now that you're on the other side of the coin, how does it make you feel to know that you've gone literally almost overnight, kind of, might as well say overnight, from being a wrestler to one who promotes?
It's definitely interesting to think of the fact that now I'm the owner of HWA. On the other side of it, to me, it doesn't change, because I've always been somebody that if I'm going to say anything, if I'm going to put something out, it needs to be what I'm meaning to say. So by me saying that, it's, even though I've not been the owner of a promotion before, behind the scenes, I did a lot with CZW, Pro Wrestling Unplugged, so many other companies where I was handling business for those companies.
Right.
I was making arrangements for talent. I was, if you will, contracting people and making agreements. So for me, it was, I had to be on point with the message that I was saying, the opportunities I was providing, the promises I was making. Because for me, it was this, yes, I may be doing it on behalf of the company, but I am saying it, so therefore it's going to come back to me. And if something doesn't come through on what I have said, that represents me, as well as the company. So for me, it hasn't really changed that sentiment. It is very true. And a promoter needs to be one who promotes, one who holds to their promises. And that is something that is very true to the core of me. I'm sure we'll get to talk about this in a moment, but I've had a couple of conversations now with Les Thatcher, and as we were talking, I shared with him a little bit of, it was funny because he's like, I know who you are, which surprised the hell out of me. But the other part of it was to tell him a little bit about my experience and belief about marketing and advertising. Because and just logistically, I live in Maryland. Heartland, if it's going to run out of Cincinnati, again, there has to be a lot of groundwork done, which I have not beyond doing. But it can't rest on, I'm just going to promote this online. If you have seen those promotions that just try to do it online, they do not succeed. So there has to be a ground team in place, for lack of a better term, ground team, in place to make this happen wherever an event is going to come. But right now, because it's what I have the access to, I am trying to leverage, especially their social media, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram, and really try to put it back out there in the minds of the people who would be the most interested in the product. And it's been amazing for me since the announcement to see the numbers in the social media just continue to escalate. the Facebook page has gone up by about 33% in the past week. Twitter in the same amount. I had to start the Instagram account from scratch.
Wow.
So it's been very quick. It has been time consuming. There are times I went to lunch with a friend the other day, and I logged onto Instagram. And while I'm on Instagram, I'm messaging people about it. So it is going to be something that is going to be labor intensive. But I'm also not necessarily. You alluded to something before with the video library about you don't want to give it to the WWE. No one will ever see it. Well, honestly, let's face it, and I want to be very careful about how I word this. There is a direct tie-in of the history of HWA to both the history and the current product of the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
As much as they have had interest in other properties, they have had an interest in the past in Heartland Wrestling Association. And I am no dummy to that. I am no dummy to the fact that the WWE Network needs to have content and thrives on content. And even separate from the network, when you look at just what they sell through DVDs, they have to have a product and content for those DVDs that might even need to go beyond what they currently are packaging. So that way it makes it like, oh, wait a minute, we've never seen this footage before. So, but to be able to do it, I'm not even sure if I'm going down that road, if there is even an interest. But that's the other reason why it's so important to catalog it, because whether I go through our exclusive vendor at SmartMark right now, SmartMark Video, or I go to the WWE Network, I think either way I have to be able to go, well, wait a minute, this is what is in this catalog. I have all this footage of this person, all right? Or hey, since the major events are up on SmartMark, why don't we do bundle packages and the 3 months of television that led up to the major event, why don't we package that together and try to reinvigorate this brand and make it a little bit more interesting so people can watch what led up to the big event and sell it together as a bigger package.
Yeah, I mean there is an aspect of if WWE is doing a video solely on Dean Ambrose, how about you could stand to make money off of that if they want to go to you and say, hey, can we have a little bit of footage when he first started out, and that provides a working relationship kind of with you and WWE. If you say, hey, maybe yeah, let's use that, here you go, so I mean I fully understand your point there. I want to talk about, you mentioned something about talking to Les Thatcher, and I'll be honest with you, part of me actually wanted to postpone this a week because I had the idea of it floating around in my head of maybe getting you and him on together, the original owner of it with the current owner of it now, and talk about the dichotomy of that and how things have changed. Can you go into a little bit about what your conversations with Les have been like, how his feelings are towards his promotion and what that he created, now that it's been sold to you?
Sure. And just to be clear, when I got the property, I reached out to Les Thatcher, who was the original owner, Cody Hawk, who with a group of other people bought it off of Les. I spoke with also then one of the partners that had worked with Cody, who then later was a group of another partners that owned the company, and of course the most recent owner. So I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. Les, to me personally, and this is just in my own personal history of professional wrestling, Les was one of the first wrestling promoters I ever talked to. As a kid, I sent HWA a message just saying, because I do have family out in the Indiana, Cincinnati area, hey, I'm going to be out here on this particular date. I see you have an event. But I can't remember if I asked some kind of question, how much were tickets, or where is the event located, or something like that. Les Thatcher actually called my grandmother's house himself, and responded back to it. I was like,
wow.
Oh. And as a kid who was not aware of the wrestling business, or not smart to it at all, really, to be like, wait a minute, you're the guy that was on MTV a month ago, and you're calling my grandmother's house.
Wow.
And now that I am in wrestling, and to know the impact that Les Thatcher himself has had, to sort of gain knowledge from him, I think, a tremendous opportunity. And he has been, well, I won't go to maybe the nature of the first part of the exchange, but I reintroduced myself to him, and he wrote back to me, and he wrote back, I think, a few hours later, just saying, I think I came off very negative to you. I'm so sorry. And I wrote back, I was like, A, I didn't take it that way. B, you were honest about where you feel things are. I'm never going to make a judgment call because it wasn't. I didn't take it, like I said, I didn't take it in any kind of negative way anyway. But it wasn't in a way that was like nasty or mean. It was, there's a lot of work ahead of you, regardless of what you do. I hope you're prepared. That kind of a statement. And he gave some constructive criticism, like maybe here's some things you need to think about, kind of a conversation. And I thought it was great. I was like, you're absolutely right. And that sort of then led to us having a phone conversation after some more back and forth emails and Facebook messages. And we talked for 2 hours, I think. And it was a great conversation. And I think what was good feedback for me personally. And again, I'm not just talking about Les Thatcher, the original owner of Heartland Wrestling Association. I'm talking about Les Thatcher, who now is traveling the world with the elite pro wrestling training opportunity that he's doing with Harley Race and Brigade the Dragon Steamboat and so many others. To hear him say when I would make comments about my thoughts on promoting and advertising in the state of wrestling, how he would agree with things I was saying, and how he would say something, and I'm like, I completely agree with you. You're absolutely right. And that, it was a good back and forth conversation. We also talked about some of the specifics of the history of HWA. We talked about some of the people that we had similar connections to. I won't name this person by name, though, Joe, you might have an inkling when I hint towards this. There was somebody who right away got a hold of me after it was announced, who I would say tried to work his own side deal with me. And, I was like, hold up, I don't even know what's here yet. Let me figure things out. And he said, well, I can get you in touch with Les Thatcher. And, he's my buddy. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I brought him up in conversation in my phone call with Les Thatcher. And Les was kind, but it was not. He's my buddy.
I'll ask this about this person. Is this person currently down in OVW?
No.
Okay, then I have no idea who you're talking about. You're going to have to tell me off air.
But again, I thought it was a great conversation. It was very direct. I thought it was a good back and forth. And actually, I had already planned before all of this happened. I'm actually going on a vacation to Indiana next week. For a family function. But I'm going to Cincinnati. I'm going to Dayton. I have some business I'm going to take care of. And Les Thatcher and I are going to meet up for lunch.
Nice.
And again, I'm not going to lie. I'd be ignorant if I ignored the fact that there's a little part of my brain that is saying somewhere back there, teenage me is going, wait a minute, I'm having lunch with the dude who was on MTV.
You're marking out a little. Come on, it's okay to say it.
But again, at the same time, like I said, being in pro wrestling and knowing the impact he's had and knowing the impact he is still having, to me, it's a way to soak up knowledge. And I think no matter how long you've been in the business, that is so important in any field of business, not just professional.
I mean, for people for people who don't realize what a big deal this promotion was, I don't mean to say back in the day because it's still a big deal now. When I heard that you purchased it, I'll be honest, you told me about this after our last interview. You was like, I got some big news I want to share. And then you were like, well, I can't share it because deal's not really finalized. When you told me you purchased Heartland, I marked out. I was like, holy shit, really? You bought HWA? And we lost him. Hold on, guys. We're going to see if we can't get him back. We'll be right back. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. World of cell phone service. But when I heard that you bought this promotion, I marked out. I was like, whoa, really? Not only the fact that my friend Phil's becoming a promoter. This is crazy. And then it's like he bought one of the most significant independent territories of all time, you know, in this. And for people who don't realize how significant of this was, they promoted the very first Brian Pillman Memorial Show back in 1998, where not only did you have WWF, then WWF guys, but you also had people from WCW and ECW all under
Mhm.
one roof. And that happened, I think the Terry Funk retirement show that Beyond the Mat featured, and then this are the only two times I could think of in history where that happened. So I mean that's
Like
pretty significant.
right, the impact is huge. Um, and I'm gonna say this because when I say this, I do not know. And like I said, to run a live event, regardless of it being Heartland Wrestling Association, putting an event together needs to be a challenge. It needs to, like I said before, requires a lot of groundwork to do. With HWA specifically, I don't, and I've had such positive feedback from a lot of people, especially in the Ohio area, saying we can't wait to see Heartland Wrestling back. And that makes me hopeful about putting an event together. But I'm very realistic about it. The opportunity that might be with Heartland Wrestling Association might really be in the legacy of that video footage. And I'm not saying that something great can't be put together in a live event, and I want to do a live event. But I recognize that, has Heartland's time come and gone? I hope not. At the same time, there is value in its history and its connection to the larger history of professional wrestling, especially for the modern day.
And with today's surge of the indie scene nowadays, what better time to really get into it? I mean, this is, within the last year and a half to 2 years, with Japan becoming more popular and now the indies becoming more popular, the business is making a comeback. So what better time if you're going to jump in than now? I want to talk to you a little bit about the sale, and if you don't want to get into details, I'll perfectly understand, but could you walk three people through who may not, kind of walk them through behind the curtain of this? What exactly was included in the sale? Because you have the IP, you have the intellectual property, but what else physically, like as far as rings? We know the library came with it. You just mentioned a lighting rig. What else has come with this?
Gosh. So I just mentioned, so the name, the social media presence, the video library, a lot of the lighting equipment. Unfortunately, actually, a friend of mine bought the cameras first before I was able to finalize it. Which, hey, it's great for my friend, and I'm very happy for him. Actually, I have the cameras myself. I'm gonna be delivering them to him when I go out to Indiana next week. Again, happy for him. A lot of posters, the ring canvas, 2 sets of ring aprons, the heavyweight title belt, the tag team title belt, a VHS to DVD converter, a DVD burner. I know I'm forgetting something, but that's what it.
No physical rings or anything like that.
Right, no physical ring. He no longer had one. HWA for the longest time had its own facility. They no longer have their own facility. So again, that's why I say when there's groundwork to be done, there's groundwork to be done. Just because it didn't come with some of those other things that you need for a wrestling promotion. At the same time, I have a lot of those other things that a wrestling promotion needs. I have a sound system. I have additional lighting. I have my own entranceway materials. There's things I already possess that I can now add to this to move forward with the promotion. But again, that's why I say when there's groundwork to be done, there's groundwork to be done. And on a very personal note, like I said a week and a half ago to the known Heartland Wrestling Association, a week before that, I had surgery, and I had to pay for a good chunk of that surgery out of pocket. So, and I bring that up, and I bring that up for the only reason I bring it up is for me, and this kind of goes back along to echo that video. If I'm going to make a promise to somebody, hey, I want you on this event because I think you're worth it, and this is what I'm going to promise you financially. I want to do it right. I am not that person because I have learned this lesson the hard way myself from my own experience. I'm not someone who's going to go, well, let's see what happens at the gate today. That is not a way you run an event.
Now
Way.
you want to be able to say, "Hey, welcome to the event. Glad you showed up. Bam, here's your envelope."
Right.
You know, and that's the way it should be done. It shouldn't. The days of let's see what we draw are over with. I mean, if AJ Styles shows up to your event, you're going to pay him, or else he's going to hop in his car and go right back home, and then probably you'll receive a bill for the airline ticket too. You know, but I I I honestly, man, when you told me that you were becoming a promoter, I was like, there's really, from personally, there's no better guy to jump into this, man. I mean, because you got your head on straight. You know what you want to do with it. You don't say, I did not expect to hear, okay, I own it. First live event is in a month. No, no, you can't do that. You just can't, especially with a promotion that's had its ups and downs like this one. You going back to Les Thatcher. Any plans to bring him in as far as like a consultant or anything like that?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I don't want to say directly, but I know there are things that Les is dealing with, and I don't know if this is where he wants to go back and focus his time on. So I don't want to speak for him on that aspect. But honestly, it is something I have thought about. And like I said, I've also talked to the other owners that have been involved in the past too, and I do think about that as well. Is there an opportunity for maybe them to get involved in a certain way? Now, in some cases, some of the owners may not need to interact. I'm very aware of that situation. But I also want to make something very clear, that for me, this is not me going in and going, okay, I'm competing with somebody else because I achieved. I don't compete with anybody. Like, I really, really don't. Correction. There's one person in the world of professional wrestling I do not care for at all, completely. That one person is like, hey, well, this person doesn't even exist in that area. But there's nobody in that area that I have any issues with, concerns with, problems with. I'm not looking, and just in that local area around Cincinnati, you have IWF First Class, you have Rockstar, you have Tough, you have a show, Superheroes of Wrestling. There's one other that I know I'm forgetting about that I'm going to kick myself for later. So I know that there are other promotions around there. So bringing Heartland Wrestling Association back has to be something that's able to stand up on its own 2 feet, that isn't a replica of especially Rockstar, who I'm associated with. Though I think that the world of everybody at Rockstar, if I take the locker room of Rockstar and deposit it at Heartland Wrestling Association, well then I'm just bringing a Rockstar show to Heartland. So to me, it has to be a mix of different people that you don't necessarily see in that area that are also great talent. I'm associated with a number of different promotions. So for me, I'm not just going to bring the talent in that, it's just going to replicate another promotion and, oh yeah, let's just now call it Heartland.
Yeah, you don't want to do like what North Carolina is, where it's the same people every other weekend at the same shows, the same gimmick. It's kind of like what the Southern California wrestling scene was back in like 2005, 2006. Human Tornado would go hit 2-3 shows a weekend. You can't be like that. You want to give the people something that they can't get anywhere else, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask about your how this now impacts your wrestling side of things as far as being a performer. I did not get to come to IWF MidAtlantic, and I'm so sorry I didn't, but Bills came first. Did you tell anybody in the locker room at any indie events that you've been to in the last couple of weekends? And if so, how was the reaction from the boys, so to speak?
Well, I told I don't know his official role. He's not the owner. He's not really the booker per se, but somebody else who's very high up involved behind the scenes at AWF. By the time I showed up in the locker room, he had already told most everybody, including Shark Boy.
Wow.
So that was a very interesting conversation. Nothing bad at all. Nothing bad. But being associated, especially most recently with the CZW, I'm very used to and experienced with being the guy that people go to, like, hey, how do I get in? Hey, can you book me? Hey, and very cordially and politely dealing with those lines of questioning, no matter how badgering Kevin Phoenix. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. But
You're fine. It is what it is, man. I mean, if people come up to you constantly go, "Hey, how can you get me in?" It's like, I'm not the booker. I'm not the promoter. I'm not the one that's going to be paying you.
right.
I totally understand where you're coming from.
Well, in the case of Heartland, I will be.
Right.
So, a lot of people, most people have been very congratulatory. I think what has surprised me the most, and I learned before all this happened, the last time I was at Rockstar, they have a very dedicated fan base, and I was surprised first by the reaction that I got from that fan base, that they have now come to know me, which was surprising. And I kind of expected backlash from some of the people, both fans and wrestlers, again, associated with Rockstar, who I'm associated with, because there used to be a bit of a rivalry between them. And there's, bad blood from some things behind the scenes. To be very honest, I'm not going to speak on that any further because I was not part of. And so to hear very positive feedback, I've been very honored. And I've seen a couple people who, if they have said something negative about the promotion, that I've seen other people step in, including a lot of the boys stepping in and saying, "Wait a minute, you don't know Phil, and this is what Phil can do." And okay, I'm gonna use it. And they have said, "I trusted Phil, that he's gonna do the right thing."
That's awesome.
And that, to me, that means a lot to me on a very, very personal level. But I have to make something clear, because I have also seen the mistake that a lot of promoters do, and I was challenged on the word for a second, because I see a lot of promoters who don't want to step away from the ring in order to promote. And for me, I'm not going to make that mistake, especially with Heartland Wrestling. I think when I run Heartland Wrestling Association, you're not going to see me in the ring as an in-ring competitor, because my focus needs to be on making sure that event runs smooth.
So are you are you retiring from the ring?
No, I'm not retiring from the ring, but I need to be smart about it. If I'm running my own event, I'm not going to. I'm trying to think of a good analogy. A good analogy is not coming to mind. Because, all right, let's face it. When you go to a restaurant, you're going for if you're going to a pizza place, you're going for the pizza. You don't care about the cook, but you need the cook in order to have the pizza. So I'm not looking to run my own promotion in order to put myself out there as a wrestler. I'm looking to run my own promotion because I want to add something to professional wrestling. I want to give guys an opportunity to put themselves out there, and for me to best organize it for them to do that. If that is my role and that is my lot, then that's what it needs to be with a company that I own. That does not mean I'm going to stop wrestling at other places. I'm still involved with a lot of other companies. I'm still going to be wrestling for IWF MidAtlantic. I'm still going to be involved with Legacy Wrestling in Pennsylvania. I'm still the general manager of Grand Slam Wrestling in Pennsylvania. I'm going to Phoenix Pro in a couple of weeks, also in Pennsylvania. So I'm involved with IWA East Coast in West Virginia. And like I said, I'm involved with Rockstar out in Ohio. So I'm not going to lose those relationships, those partnerships, just because now this is going to happen. Now, I do have to make Heartland a priority. So there's other things in my personal life that now are going to step aside. So now I can focus on this property and getting this property to where it needs to be. And like I said, to run an event, regardless if it was Heartland or not, it takes some groundwork to do. So if I'm going to look to do that, I need to do that the best way and not just half-assed.
So what you're saying basically is we'll never see Phil Stamper wrestling for XYZ promotion on Friday and then running a promotion or running a Heartland show on Saturday night. You're all in or you're all out with it pretty much. Because, I mean, you'll still pop up on other promotions on off weekends or whatever, but the weekend that you have a show or an event, I'm sorry, you hate them being called shows, they're events. Your focus on event weekend is HWA and the promotion that goes into that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people even forget that, and a lot of promotions I work with now sometimes forget that even the day of an event, outside of the setup of the event itself, there is still promoting to be done. What is that event that's happening down the street in the early afternoon that when it ends at 5 o'clock, oh, wait a minute, is there an opportunity for them to now make their way to our event?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of promoters forget about that. Yeah, a lot of promoters.
I mean, there's something to be said, and it's not just, hey, it's the other wrestling events ending at this time and we're starting at this time. It's other events happening in said community. If the wine tasting festival down the street is ending at there, maybe we can joke a couple of the drunks into coming to the wrestling show. I mean, it happens. I mean, it's especially if the winery's right around the corner from the arena. Hey, ask the winery, hey, can we put some flyers up after the show? Come here, or go paper the cars while the wine event's happening, stuff like that. I totally understand. There's a lot to do, and that's why when I tell people, trust in Phil, he knows what he's doing. I mean, and you won't half-ass it. That's why I was kind of relieved to hear, hey, if anybody's going to be a promoter, it's got to be you. One more thing I want to talk about is well, there's two things. One is AIWF MidAtlantic. What is up with Rick Diesel? He said, if anybody's going on, you were at the show, he made a comment about Dixie Carter smelling like fish.
Oh, God. To Shark Boy.
To Shark Boy. I popped so hard. Oh, my Lord. Because I've seen Rick. Rick gave me a thumbs up that time I brung that sign to the event for you with how we trust. So I popped Rick with the sign. So me and Rick had Rick and Tim had a couple of, conversations about it, about how we were all Phil Stamper fans. And then he's always been behind the scenes, though. You really didn't see or hear too much out of Rick. And then to see him come out as the quote unquote creative control and cut a promo like that was crazy.
I mean, Rick is definitely the driving force of Mid-Atlantic.
Oh, yeah.
And he likes to pop up now and again. So I will, when he speaks, it's always going to be entertaining.
When he made that comment about, now I know why you floundered in TNA or something, because Dixie Carter smells like fish or some shit, I was like, oh my Lord, because everybody who's watching and listening to New Surge Live knows that I've been calling Dixie Carter Jim Hurt Jr. for the better part of a year now. So I popped huge when I heard that. But back to HWA, I wanted to ask you, speaking of people like Shark Boy and wrestlers and everything, I know you said you're far off from running a promotion, and I know you may not want to speak too hard on this, but what sort of talent are you eyeing up? What style is HWA going to be now? Are we going to see more of a AIWF MidAtlantic? Are we going to see more of a Ring of Honor style, kind of like a PWX kind of is in the Carolinas type thing? Are we going to see a mix of everything? What is going to be their style?
Well, I think the one advantage, if there is one, of Heartland not running in about a year is really the fact that you're not breaking new ground because there is a legacy and a history to the company, but that really you can hit the ground running fresh. And I think one thing that I always hate is when you have a promotion that does something that just feels so forced. And honestly, some of those companies just flounder until they find their own rhythm, and some don't find their own. And so I will be honest in saying I have thought about particular talent. I'm not going to say who, because again, I'm not going to put that out there because I don't even have a date yet. Until I have a date, I'm not even going to do that. The only thing I will say is because there is already drama over the HWA Heavyweight Championship.
Oh my Lord! I'll go ahead and put it out there. According to the Wikipedia page, which I see you've already edited, at least somebody has. You didn't. Somebody has, because your name's on it.
I didn't, but I saw it and they misspelled my name.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, oh my Lord. I was like, either Phil was like up late at night when he did this, or somebody else butchered it. The current champion right now, as of July 2013, so you might as well say 2 years now, Chance Profit. And Chance Profit has been all over the place since then. So I'll go ahead and ask it. Is Chance Profit, and this may be a little bit kayfabe for somebody. Oh well, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We could do kayfabe on here too. Is Chance Profit still the HWA Heavyweight Champion?
As of the last HWA event in July 2014, Chance Profit was and still is the Heartland Wrestling Association Heavyweight Champion. There is no reason to change that. You're absolutely right. Chance Profit is out there. He's everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I know next Friday he's at AIWF First Class in Franklin, Ohio. I know he's wrestling for AWL down in North Carolina. He is all over the place. I know there are very interested parties that are looking at him for a broader extension of being Chance Profit. That's probably the best pseudo kayfabe way I can put that out there. But I also know some of the drama occurs because the event before the last HWA event, Chance Profit was not the man who walked out with that title. Dustin Reyes was the man who walked out with the HWA Heavyweight Championship. At the next event, Dustin Reyes was not there, but Chance was the one who walked away with the HWA Heavyweight Championship. So there is a bit of drama over that belt. And that's okay. That's okay. Because, and he's still here today, that is what people are asking about. That again tells me there is still an interest in Heartland, that there is still an interest in Chance being the champion, that there's still interest in Dustin Reyes being the champion. So for me, it's like, wow, there is already something there that can start the foundation from which to work from.
I want to ask about the tag team titles here, going with the quote-unquote kayfabe. I knew her once. I dated her. Hell of a woman. Anyway, tag title says TBD, to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
You have the heavyweight title. Do you have possession of the tag titles as well? Has the tag titles never really been created? What's going on there?
Yes, I do have physical possession of both the heavyweight championship belt and the tag team title belt. So my understanding is that the tag championships were vacated. I do not have a plan moving forward for what's going to happen next with those belts. Again, I have an event to play. So that does leave it a little open for what's going to happen to the tag titles.
I know you said you have an event to plan, and it's probably on your list of things to do for this promotion. It's probably number 22, 23. But as we wrap up here, I do want to ask, do you have I know you don't have a date set, and I'm not going to ask you if you have a date set, but do you have a year set?
Good question. I'm not going to answer it, and just because, again, there's a lot of groundwork. And on a personal level, like about a year ago, I was making motions towards putting an event together. I actually had started to book a couple talent, and the venue pulled out. So I have learned that lesson. I'm not saying anything until I have a piece of paper in my hand with a contract for a venue and a down payment on the building.
A lot of people don't realize how hard it is to find a venue that will, because some venues are like, sure, you can hold your event here, and then when they find out it's pro wrestling, they're still there. Oh God, okay, never mind. You know?
Right. Right. Again, I know there is an interest, not just. I know there's an interest for professional wrestling. There's an interest for Heartland Wrestling Association, especially in that Cincinnati area.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the impact and legacy that Heartland has still rings very loudly in a lot of people's minds. So, I do feel it needs to run in that area, and I do feel that I want to make an effort towards running an event, but not just a singular event. That if I'm putting on an event, it's to start a series of events again. I will say this very clearly. Between now and Thanksgiving, I am back in that area no less than 5 times. So I know that when it comes to doing some of that groundwork, well, guess what? I'm going to be there 5 times between now and Thanksgiving. So I know that when those opportunities are there, I'm going to also be able to take the opportunity to grab hold of those opportunities.
I want to ask a question here, and you can answer it yes or no, or you don't know yet. And I know I'm throwing a lot of things at you because you, again, for people who are listening, he's only owned the place for a week. Okay, so when people, and I don't want people going, Joe, he's only owned the place for a week. God, don't ask that. But it's my job as a podcaster and I've never considered myself a wrestling journalist. I'm no Meltzer or anything, but I feel the need to ask this. Women's title, yes or no?
I think there's a place for a women's championship. I currently do not own the physical belt.
Choose your words carefully, because the way women's wrestling is being perceived now, like, I maybe shouldn't have asked that, but I felt like I needed to ask because women's wrestling has reached a new plateau as far as the industry of itself goes.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I almost opened up the door to a different kind of conversation about what I own and don't own and belts and all that stuff. But I do think there's a place for women's wrestling and professional wrestling. I do, because it does. There's a place for tag wrestling. There's a place for heavyweight wrestling. There's a place for cruiserweight wrestling. It's just getting all that together. So yes, I will there be, should there be, when there will be, that's yet to be determined.
Nice. I like that answer. A lot of people are going to go, well, he dodged it. No, that's one who promotes. That's a nice way of putting it. Does it have a place? Yes. But do I know if it's going to happen? I've only owned the damn thing for a week. Give it a chance.
Because if I was to say emphatically right now, yes, there will be women's wrestling. Yes, there will be a women's title match on the very first event, whenever it happens. And then I can't book the people I want to book. Well, okay, that instantly makes me laugh. So I'm not just put out there that this is going to happen if it isn't going to happen.
Nice. You're right. You can't really predict the future at all, especially in the wrestling business. You just can't. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. We've been talking for probably about an hour now, and I know you're on the drive to work or drive home, and I don't want to bug you right when you get in the house, because I know how it's like after a hard day of work. You want to relax, especially you want to go home and look at your title belts and figure out what the hell am I going to do with you.
Well, I'm not looking at the title belts. I'm looking at VHS tapes and DVD tapes and beta tapes. And
that's what I want to... Beta?
Well, remember about 10 years ago, and even a little bit before that, handy cams a lot of them used beta tapes to record.
Okay. And then you're also figuring out for this video library how much of it is actually usable, how much of it is just so deteriorated that you can't watch it no more. Can it be cleaned up? Can it be restored?
I will say, fortunately, the stuff I'm looking at is in pretty decent shape. What's funny is in some cases I'm actually finding raw footage, like raw television footage or raw pre-taped pre-show segments or stuff like that, which is rather entertaining.
I was going to say a lot of bloopers.
Oh yeah, but at the same time, there might not be an interest in some of that. So yeah, a lot of it is trial and error.
Where are you storing all this stuff is what I want to know. I mean, because stupid shit like that is what intrigues me about promoting. It's like, where are you storing your footage? Because there's 20 years of footage well, maybe not 20, but there's years and years of footage that you got to store. There's ring aprons that you have to store, lighting rigs that you have to store. Do you have storage lockers? Do you keep it in the attic? It's
there right now. There is an empty room in my house. And
wow.
Well, it's not empty anymore.
Oh man! Tell everybody where they could go to find out about HWA, and if you want, the floor is yours here as long as you need to tell people where they can find you, find HWA, where they can find you wrestle in the next few weeks. Facebook.com, I think, From the Desk of Nate Stein is a list of almost every indie event happening in the country, it seems like at times. I know there's millions upon millions of more probably, but If you want a good list, find that. He's also listed on PW Insider, as that list is on there every couple of weeks or every week actually. But the floor is yours. Take as much time as you want. Tell people where they can find out more about your new baby, so to speak, and where they can find more Phil Stamper.
Sure. And you, when we talk about the indie list, we talk about From the Desk of Nate Stein, which you can find on Facebook at facebook.com/Desk of Nate Stein, which was promoted on the Nerdist podcast, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I started getting very passionate, not about the list, but about the need for people to advertise. Because what you said is very true. I know there's more promotions out there. I'm only one person. I try to go through as many sites as I can. I go through all of my emails. And what I have found sometimes when I look up what, like especially Facebook pages, is that they won't proactively talk about their events. And instead, when I go to it the next time, I see pictures from the event that just happened.
Yeah.
And I go through its history, and I don't see anything about them talking up the next event. And when I look at their crowd, I'm like, oh, that's why you have 20 people in your crowd. And you can and some of them have had the best talent in the world, and nobody knows about them. Mm-hmm. And I've had people who, I will try the best I can to get that list updated. But you're right. There's so many websites and so many pages and so many people talking about stuff. I may miss something. I might not know about something. It's not me intentionally hiding it. And I'll get contacted sometimes by promotions saying, why didn't you include us this week? Because of you, our draw suffered. Because we use you as a tool for advertising. And I'm like, I've never talked with you before. I don't know who you are. I didn't know you had an event. It's nothing personal. Please tell me the next time. And I'll say, like, all I need to know is the next time you have an event, and you were on the list. It's not an issue.
Again, one who promotes.
Right. So that for me is still there. And I had a moment this last week when I was putting it together, like, should I still even continue to do this? Do people even like it? And as I was thinking about it, I got 2 emails from people saying how much they appreciate going through it and finding out what's in the area. One from a talent that was looking for an opportunity, and another from a fan who was like, I didn't know this place was 10 minutes down the street for me. Thank you for doing this list. So of course, what I'm trying to do now, because it's what I have the access to do, is I want to make sure I have that good foundation in place. So when it comes to finding out more about Heartland Wrestling Association, go anywhere you can and look up HWA online, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube.
There is no formal website. HWAonline.com is not existent at the moment. So if you read on the wiki page that that's the website, it was, but it's not anymore. And I'm sure Phil's in the process of getting that corrected, maybe. But I don't want to speak for him. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm working on that because the domain name itself is for sale, and it's a little bit higher of a price point than I'm willing to pay for a domain name. But it's on everything, so I'm trying to see what can be arranged. But look up all of the social media: HWA Online, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. HWA Online. And if you want to know more about me, if you want to find out where I'm going to be at next, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at PS Phenom and on Facebook at P Stamper. I might have, during this conversation, reached Twitter follower 3,300 because I was at like 2296 3296 when I left an hour and a half ago.
I'll check right now. Followers 3,297.
Okay.
So go ahead, go follow Phil on Twitter.
At PS Phenom. That's PSPHENOM. PSPHENOM.
I'll put links to it down below. So everybody, also he's an actor too. What's going on? Any new news in your acting career here? I
got cast for 2 different movie projects. Unfortunately, both of them stalled out. And that happens in, as much as we talk about indie wrestling, the world of indie filmmaking. Maybe that's a topic we could talk about on another day.
Yeah.
There are sometimes a lot of very awkward and unfortunate parallels. A lot of people, it's very interesting to me that Ninjas versus Monsters, which I filmed 3-4 years ago now, that went for sale. I can't remember. It went for sale 6 months ago, I think. Just now people are going, wait a minute, I just saw your profile picture. I just saw it mentioned. I just saw. So it's surprising that it's getting, really in the last couple of weeks, all of a sudden out of nowhere, there's additional traction.
We asked you about it a couple weeks ago. I like the hammer character, to be honest. Who needs a gun when you have a wrench? I like that.
Right. Well, and that led to an interesting conversation with Wrench from CZW.
Oh,
Who's
man.
also a huge horror movie buff, so we're having a brief conversation about a possible other opportunity.
Did you see the Doctor Who video that I sent you the other day? That I tagged you in on Facebook?
Was that the piano one?
Yeah, the one where the woman is playing the theme, and as she's playing it, it's all of she's dressing as all of the doctors as it goes along. I was like, oh, Phil's gonna mark out. Click, gotta tag him in this. I've fallen out of Doctor Who, I must say, ever since Tennant is my guy, and I know I'm not the only one that have stopped watching since Tennant left, but it's hard for me to swallow the old guy. It's just hard for me to take him seriously sometimes. You went younger and younger, and now it's the old guy, and it's who's good. His acting is good, but it's kind of hard for me to go. You had such a good thing going with Tennant, but it was time to say goodbye to Tennant at the same time.
Right.
But
and I'll be honest, the Moth is not my favorite showrunner, Stephen Moffat.
No.
And people will disagree with me when I say this, and that's okay, because Matt Smith brought Doctor Who, especially for an American audience, since its revival, really brought it to the forefront in a lot of different ways. He was not my favorite Doctor.
No,
he was my worst. He was not my worst, though, but he just was definitely not in the realm of my favorite. And I do think the show dropped the ball in a couple of different ways. Hey, I'm not the showrunner. Maybe there's some other things that are going to be coming. I have a lot of hope with Peter Capaldi. He's very different than what we have seen, which I think is good for the property. It stands out a little bit. It does mean it gets a little weird sometimes, and it's already a show that talks about traveling in time and space. And I got my love of sci-fi from my mom. My mom was a huge Star Trek fan. The first television show I ever remember watching was a syndicated episode of Star Trek. It was Cat's Paw? Cat's Eye? I always forget. No, it was Cat's Paw. And so, like that, I remember that being my first television show ever watching. And my mom, when I talk to her sometimes about what happens on Doctor Who, she goes, wait, stop. What? Oh, my brain hurt. Oh, why are we talking about it? So, I know for some people it's not their bag, or it gets a little off center. I think they miss some good story opportunities. I think sometimes for me, and of course I like the companions that are on the show. But for me, this show is about the Doctor. It's called Doctor Who, and I heard Russell T Davies, who was the showrunner before Stephen Moffat.
Mm-hmm.
I've also heard Moffat say this, but the show really is about the companions. It's about seeing the Doctor through their lens, because they're the ones that connect to the human side of everything, or they keep the Doctor sort of relevant. And where I can see maybe some of that is true, I don't think it's exclusively true. And I'm sorry, I didn't watch David Tennant because I connected to Rose. Though the story of the Doctor and Rose was good. What hooks you in, and I'm interested in. Here's a guy. In a way, in an intrinsic way, he's lost. In a way, he's trying to find himself. I feel like. The story of the Doctor to me has always been more compelling than the story of the companion. Though I like the companions, and I think they add to the story in different ways. But you're right. I think more recently the show, they completely dropped the ball with the story of River. They completely dropped the ball with Clara.
Mm-hmm.
I like Clara though. I really like her, and I hope she. Well, and apparently there's a rumor she's having a relationship with Prince. Who's the unmarried Prince? Prince Harry.
Harry, yeah.
There's a rumor about that because he was caught
on the set,
grabbing her leg.
But to me, it's like the Doctor. When I watch Tenet, that very from Christmas Invasion, okay?
Hmm.
You're so wrapped up in his character. Rose was around before Tenet, okay? And not a lot of people realize it because I don't think a lot of people have seen Eccleston, but Rose was around before Tenet ever was. So that incarnation of the Doctor was new to her, obviously, but from Tenet, from moment one, when Tenet goes, "That's my fighting hand," in that very first episode, it's just
Right.
like, dude, I want to know more about this guy. Never mind the blonde with the tits. She's the eye candy, okay? I want to know more about him, you know? And
Right.
honestly, I found her mother, Rose's mom, because I had seen a bunch of stuff with her in it. I was like, oh shit, Camille's in here. Camille Cordy, I think her name is in this. So I was kind of more excited about her than Rose, even. But you're absolutely right. It's the story of the Doctor. The companion is just that. It's a companion. I feel, and there's been even been a couple of episodes like Christmas specials and stuff that have been gotten more over, in my opinion, because it's just the Doctor. He still
Hmm.
has a companion in the episode, but it's focused around him, and it should always be about him. You know, the name of the show's not Doctor and the Companion. It's Doctor Who, and it should always be about that. But I saw that video and I was just like, Phil is gonna love this. I didn't know if you had seen it already, because 9 times out of 10 when I find stuff like that, you're like, seen it, it's great. But I also wanted to ask if you know any information. Why are they popping up on Disney Channel? I think 2 days after our last interview, I was like, Phil, tell me more about this. Since when are they on Disney Channel?
They did a I can't. I'm trying to remember how I found out about it at first. I saw an announcement about it. I want to say in early May, late April, and then they ran Tooth and Claw, which was the second episode of Tenet. So it was the one after the Christmas Invasion,
Hmm.
um, with like on a random Saturday on Disney XD. And I think it was sort of to test the market, like, hey, if we pick up Doctor Who, will it run? So they licensed. Right now, they've only licensed the first year of Tenet. Um, and they've run it as if the show was always running. So they didn't do an introduction really to David Tennant. So I think that makes it very interesting because if they continue on with the story from there, and you get to meet Martha, and you get to meet Donna, and you get to meet everybody else that was involved, the stories are going to slowly advance and become darker. You don't know as much about the history of the Doctor, so especially when Martha comes on board. And I'm not going to say what if you haven't watched the show yet. When the Doctor starts to lie to Martha about stuff,
Yeah.
the fans might not really catch on that he's lying to her. And I think that's going to be really interesting because
And
it's not like an intentional lie. He gets caught by the pain of the truth of it.
And what about how that's appealing to a new audience now? Like when Doctor Who aired on BBC, and you used to have to go to PBS and watch it, which PBS still does. I turned on I clicked on the TV at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I saw Doctor Who airing on WUNC down in North Carolina, because we get their affiliate of the PBS station, and the footage looks horrible. I don't know why it looks so horrible now on PBS, but it looked like I was watching it through an old school TV, but it was there and I watched it. But it's like, this is Disney Channel, and this is like kids and teenagers that you're appealing to. My son watches. My son's about to turn 6 in 17 days, and he watches Disney Channel religiously. And maybe not Disney XD, but he still, these are a whole new generation. We're appealing to the millennials now. How are they going to take it, not knowing that there is, you know, 9 more before him, and years upon years before of storyline before this? So what are your thoughts on that? That they're appealing to an entire new generation. It's like it was when you got me into Doctor Who, and they had just started back up again. New generation. Okay, I was in my early 20s. Now it's a whole new generation with kids.
Well, again, I think it builds up to the mystery or the intrigue about the Doctor, because you don't have that history. They aired School Reunion,
Hmm.
which was the reintroduction of Sarah Jane,
Oh man,
but definitely the introduction of Sarah Jane to this generation.
may she rest
Who,
in peace.
right, Liz Sladen, amazing. She was an amazing,
Yes.
amazing person. Um, that is the first episode that even with Eccleston and even after seeing Regeneration, that was the first time it truly discussed that, oh, wait a minute, the Doctor has been here before. Because even up to that point in the history of the TV show, they really didn't talk about all the Doctors that came before. And there was even though Russell T Davies did put out that even Paul McGann was recognized as a Doctor, that all the Doctors were there before, they hadn't shown any of them yet. They hadn't really talked about any of them existing before. So bringing in Sarah Jane was really the first linkage that, oh, wait, there is really a history of this show. And they brought in K9. And as the show develops further, you get, okay, wait a minute. There are these other linkages. There are these other characters or previous Doctors that existed in the history of the show. I do think, and when I say this, I loved the 50th anniversary episode. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
This is gonna be telling of me and my level of nerddom, but I bought a 3D television, and one of the reasons I bought a 3D television
to watch that.
To watch that. That was my first 3D thing I ever bought. Because I'm at that level. Just I have to admit it.
Do you think that merchandise popping up in places like Hot Topic that depict all the generations of the Doctor? You know, you have the one that wore the, I'm not like you, I can't name them all. The one that wore the scarf all the time, and the one, you have the 10th and 11th and everybody else. And there's merchandise in Hot Topic. There's a T-shirt that shows all incarnations, and
right. It is definitely showing up. Well, it's showing up in American culture now.
Yeah.
It is a TV show that gets decent ratings for cable television on BBC America. The toy market has not been hit in the same way here as it was in the United Kingdom, though you can find toys at most comic book shops, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know when I say this, did Disney find a way to leverage that market? I really don't know.
I was going to say that was going to be my point, is that now that this, a lot of kids and this generation, like I got a 15-year-old stepdaughter who loves Doctor Who, but I don't think she's ever seen an episode. But yet she said, when I walked in, there's this place in North Carolina called Geeksboro, Geeks Borough, and it's a coffee shop where you could go in. It's like a nerd hangout. They have tons of board games, and they do like Saturday morning cartoons and video game competitions. But the very first thing you see when you walk in the door is a life-size copy of the TARDIS and a dialect sitting right beside it.
Right.
And it's and she marks out when she sees it. But I don't think she's ever watched an episode unless she's gone on Netflix without me knowing. They never tell the grown-ups anything, but still. Does Disney now bridge that gap that, okay, we're not going to, what is BBC America is what some kids are saying, and what is even PBS now? Oh, the channel we used to watch Barney on. They're not going to go to those two places to find Doctor Who, but they see Doctor Who in a place like Hot Topic, and now Disney starts airing it. Do you think that kind of is a smart way to bridge the gap?
I do. I think it's quite interesting. Because I don't know any of the financial arrangements that Disney has paid for it, but if it picks up, if it gets enough traction, who knows? And I will say, internationally, Disney does partner with BBC. Like in Australia, actually, I'm not going back up on that one. I'm not sure in Australia if they air Doctor Who, but they did air. They had an exclusive right. I think it's called Disney Australia or Australia Disney. To air a canine spin-off show.
Really?
It's never been shown in the United States.
Wow.
The first episode I think I saw on YouTube.
Is it a cartoon or?
No, it is a live action.
I gotta see this.
I can't remember if it's just called Canine or Canine and Friends or something. Not Canine and Company, because that's something else. That was actually an opportunity. That was a spin-off pilot for K9 and Sarah Jane in the 80s that never took any traction. Which is funny because having K9 and Sarah Jane together in the Sarah Jane Adventures is almost a sequel to K9 and Company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole lot of.
Do you
I
think
could
that?
go
Do you
really
think that
deep on that.
what I don't want to see happen with this is that Disney? I don't want to see Disney get some kind of rights to Doctor Who, where we're now seeing, how they have like it's people are going to go, oh God, Joe, you know the names of these shows, but my kids watch them. You have like Austin and Ally and Jesse and Hannah Montana and all these tween shows. I'm
Well,
sincerely hoping that they don't do a teenage Doctor Who, because
no,
my
so
first thought when they aired Doctor Who on Disney, I was like, oh God, here we go. We're gonna have teenage Doctor Who running around. They're gonna mess it up.
I have heard so many rumors, and I don't even know, if any of them are possibly true. The only thing I see is that Disney was looking for content. They didn't have the money for a new show, so they wanted to get something that had an attraction to a younger audience base, like a younger teenage audience. Doctor Who kind of works, and then it's a show that you could sort of grow up with. Um, but there is potential there. When they ended up developing, so the episode of School Reunion that I mentioned before, which reintroduces Sarah Jane,
Hmm.
they actually did not approach her first. They went with another former companion. I think her real name is Louise Jameson, and she played a companion named Leela, um, whose name was used by Futurama. Um, and there's a lot of Doctor Who connection to Futurama. That's a whole other story. But the interesting piece of the story that would have happened with Leela was left on Gallifrey, and Gallifrey is missing. So there could have been a bigger story there.
Hmm.
But Louise Jameson, it didn't work out for her to be on the show, so they got Liz Sladen. At the same time, because Doctor Who was so popular, they were thinking about doing spin-offs. They were already developing Torchwood. They were also trying to figure out something else. They actually did pre-production work. They basically did everything but build sets and hire the cast for Rose Tyler, Defender of Earth.
Oh my God.
That was her on the alternate Earth running their Torchwood. But they thought, this is a little overkill.
Yeah.
It's a little, we're going to have other Torchwood, and now we're going to have this Torchwood. So they thought, what if we aim more for then the younger audience? Because you have Torchwood, which is like the adult audience. You have Doctor Who, that's the family show, the teenage show. Let's go for the younger audience, and that is what started in the path of developing the Sarah Jane Adventures. But even before they really got to Sarah Jane Adventures, there was a quick conversation about, should it be the stories of a young doctor on Gallifrey? Should it be like him discovering the sonic screwdriver, him figuring out how to run a TARDIS, him at the academy? And
Now,
Russell T. Davies said, you know what, no. That's going to ruin the mystique and mystery of the Doctor. How does he know these things? Who does he know? That there should still be a bit of a mystery about his past.
that should be a movie.
Right, and by showing his childhood, you would give a lot away. I think there would still be a way to do it that wouldn't, but at the same time, I think that's right. And that's how you got the character of Luke on the Sarah Jane Adventures, who plays Sarah Jane's son. He wasn't really an alien per se. He was a clone-ish,
Yeah.
created by aliens, but he was a super smart, intelligent boy. And it's like, oh, I wonder where that came from, Doctor.
Do you think the acquisition of Disney acquiring things like Marvel and Star Wars, where if you take a look at the latest Avenger movie, it does take a dark overtone. The Marvel movies take a dark overtone. Kids are going off and seeing this and wanting more of that dark overtone, including teenagers. My son, as a matter of fact, his favorite, we went and saw Inside Out last weekend. His favorite character in the whole movie is anger. He loves anger. Well, again, dark overtone in a kid's movie. Do you think Doctor Who, because Doctor Who goes dark as hell sometimes. I mean, there are times in that show where you're like, how does this ever make it to television, in a science fiction form, but do you think that's Disney giving kids and teenagers, because Disney XD is kind of like a teenage tween type of channel. My son doesn't watch it primarily as much. because a lot of people don't know it is a separate channel from the regular Disney Channel. But
Right.
is this Disney's way of saying, okay, we want, like you said, we wanted a show that appeals to the teenage audience, and they're wanting darker things. The winds of television are changing. We're started going back, maybe not Jerry Springer, but they want things a little bit more dark and real. Doctor Who gives that to them.
Right.
I mean,
And
I think that's what they're going for now.
I mean, and that's a very good question. And I wish I knew. I've heard that, well, Disney might be trying this out to see if they could develop their own
Oh, God.
spin-off show. I've seen it. Maybe this is a way to test the waters to see if an American companion could be tolerated, which it has before, and I think it would be okay with it. Again, just the crazy rumors. I do not think that BBC would completely sell Doctor Who to Disney. There's no way. It's their right now. It's their flagship show. It's their biggest money maker.
It's been their flagship show for the last 10 years.
Right. If it's not their biggest show, then it's up there as one of the biggest shows.
Think of who have made BBC the most money in the last 10 years. Doctor Who
Right.
and Gordon Ramsay. It sounds out of left field, but it's true.
Well, and oh my gosh, I can't remember his name now. American Idol judge
Simon Cowell.
Simon Cowell. Yeah. And Big Brother there is still apparently a big thing. So hey, who knows? Who knows? Who knows why Disney's doing it? Again, Disney's not going to buy Doctor Who.
They can't afford it.
Right. They could afford it. The BBC wouldn't give up their cash cow.
Oh God, if Disney buys Doctor Who, think about it. You got Marvel, Doctor Who, and Star Wars all under the same roof.
Right.
Let the crossover headaches begin. Oh my God, no.
Well, and when I say this, I totally acknowledge what I'm about to admit to. I love fan films. I will go on YouTube sometimes and just search Doctor Who superhero fan film. It's sort of dumb. I'm watching a web series right now called The New Adventures of Peter and Wendy. It's just odd. I don't even know what it is. It's not a romantic thing, but it's definitely not like the magical tale of living in Neverland. But anyway, there are some really interesting Doctor Who spins there on some of their fan films. And one of the characters that you never got to meet him, but you did see his arm. The Doctor mentioned another Time Lord in an episode. I won't overly spoil it. He finds out that a friend might be alive, and then he finds out, well, he wasn't. But a lot of these fan films have picked up, ooh, what if we do the adventures of this character? And maybe he is still alive, and this is how he could still be alive. Could that be it? And it's a way to introduce, here we've introduced the story of the Doctor to an American audience. What if we do a different Time Lord? Oh, well, he just happens to speak with an American accent.
Wow.
No,
I don't think I could take the Doctor with an American accent, to be honest. I don't care if it's airing in this country and showing people. No, you just don't do it.
Right. and that was the question in the 90s when Doctor Who had been off the air since 1989, and they were going to bring back Doctor Who in a partnership with Fox. There was a lot of questions. Should we start from scratch? Should we just make it like an Americanized Doctor Who? Should we continue the story? And they ended up making the decision to continue the story. But then Fox was like, well, we don't want some British actor. Let's get somebody that American fans already know. Let's get the musician Sting to play the Doctor. They did not do that.
Thank God.
But that's how we got Paul McGann to be the Doctor, and he continued the story of the Doctor. Something I meant to say earlier when we were talking about, when I briefly mentioned River Song, is so all that time when Doctor Who's been off the air, and even since it's been back, in Britain, the radio is still a thing.
Yeah.
So they still do like radio plays of a lot of their favorite shows, and Doctor Who was no exception. They still sell a lot of audio adventures and audio plays of different shows. Again, Doctor Who is no exception. So they actually do continuing adventures of the different Doctors. Because let's face it, you can have Tom Baker, who is a little more advanced in his age now, but you hear his voice and you don't know he's more advanced in age.
Yeah.
And they are, Big Finish is the name of the production company that does the audio production. They are going to do audio adventures of River Song.
Nice.
And they're also doing, one of the audio adventures is of the Eighth Doctor, Paul McGann, and his episode will feature River Song in it somehow.
Wow.
So that's going to be a huge seller for them.
A while back when you and I were talking, golly, it's been a few years now. Is right when the rumors of David Tennant leaving the show were happening. So it's been a while. There was rumors that David Tennant was going to do an American series where he was playing a lawyer, and then that got canceled. Did any plans to, maybe renew that, or what's happening with? Do you know what's happening with David Tennant now?
I'm not fully sure. So they did a pilot. It just didn't get picked up. Honestly, David Tennant did a really bad American accent.
Really?
I don't know if do you remember the Doctor Who episode? If it had David Tennant, it was with Martha, and they go back to 1930s New York.
Yeah.
He did that accent, that American accent.
Okay.
In Chicago as a lawyer. I'm like, that just doesn't work for me.
See, I didn't see the pilot. I have yet to see this pilot that he did. I don't even know what's out there.
That was the only clip I saw where he's in his apartment, somebody comes in to talk to him, and it's like, I'm doing this kind of accent, and it's like, oh, I can't.
He did, that's my fighting hand.
Right. But then you watch him in, what was it, Grace Point?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was a much better American accent for him. He has been cast in Marvel's Jessica Drew.
Nice.
They have renamed it. It's no longer AKA Jessica Drew. It's now just Jessica Drew. He's been cast as a villain whose name currently escapes me. I know he got picked up. Broadchurch was the American show. I'm trying to very quickly open up on my phone. I am parked now, by the way. I'm not trying to drive and talk on the phone and web search while I'm doing all this. Just because anybody's out there going, I know what he's doing. Also, filmography. I hate the mobile version of stuff sometimes. Okay. He's in a couple of movies. I Feel Fine, Metanoia, Reds and Grays he's just doing a voiceover. He's in Jessica Jones as Kilgrave from the Marvel Universe. He's in a movie short called 96 Ways to Say I Love You. He's doing another voiceover for something called Chew. He was the narrator for a TV series that only lasted 8 episodes called W1A. I know I actually looked up, and now I can't remember what it was about. I want to say it was like a news studio.
He does, my son, the only reason why I know this is because my son watches it. He's the voice of Twigs in Treefu Tom, which is a Sprout exclusive. He's done stuff like the Clone Wars, the Clone Wars. There's one for you crossing over.
Right.
Let's see.
What's funny to me about a lot of that is George Lucas was a huge Star Trek fan and a huge Doctor Who fan. And before he created Star Wars, he actually went to the BBC and tried to buy the rights to Doctor Who. And then he went to CBS at the time and tried to buy the rights to Star Trek. And when he couldn't get either, that's what led him into Star Wars. And when you look at the very first Star Wars movie, not only Peter Cushing, and I wish I could remember the character's name in Star Wars. I'm going to feel so bad because, I watched the Star Wars movie, but I'm not the biggest Star Wars nerd. But Peter Cushing, who played the Doctor in two movies in England, was cast as a bad guy, as a major bad guy in the first Star Wars film. And a lot of the actors in the first Star Wars movie had been throughout the Doctor Who series. So there were a lot of tie-ins from Doctor Who to Star Wars on the acting side of things, not the storyline.
This Jessica Jones thing, this is like the next Marvel Netflix original, apparently.
Yeah, Jessica
And
Jones is.
if
And then
Daredevil did so damn well and was so freaking awesome, I loved Daredevil, as did 90% of all the other people out there. I mean, if you haven't seen it, if there's two things you get Netflix for, it's Orange is the New Black and Daredevil. Sorry, that's their that's their meat and potatoes right now. But this looks like, I mean, if this is anything like Daredevil, and if it's going to be shot and produced anything like what Daredevil was.
well, I'm going to back that up because I don't think it should be. And hear me
You
out for a
don't
second.
you don't think it should be in the set in the same universe?
No, I completely think it should be in the same universe. But I don't think it should be shot the same way, and I don't think it should be the same kind of story. I think Daredevil needs its own look and feel, and I think Jessica Jones needs its own look and feel. And the biggest complaint that people have right now about the Marvel Universe is how they treat their women heroes. While at the same time, Marvel has done so much of a better job with their female heroines better than the DC property.
Oh yeah.
They've also missed a huge opportunity for merchandising. So I think
Harley
really
Quinn should have been in a Batman movie years ago. Sorry, that's just how I feel.
But at the same time, Harley Quinn was a creation of Batman the Animated Series and wasn't in the comic books yet. So
True.
I can see why she wasn't initially inputted into it.
But in the Christopher Nolan movie, imagine if Heath Ledger had a Harley Quinn to play off of. You know?
Oh yeah, I do agree. I think it would have been great, but I can see also why she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And because the other complaint about a lot of female heroes is that they're often just the female composite of a male counterpart. So I think having different characters in like Black Widow and Jessica Drew, I think they can tell a story they can tell a story a different way. So if it's the same tone as Daredevil, well then you're just getting Daredevil again. Oh, but look, it's somebody else with that character.
Yeah, it's Daredevil with tits, but I mean.
Well, I wasn't going to go there.
I will. It's my show.
But at the same time, so mix up the production style, so it just has its own look and feel.
Yeah.
Then at the same time, you're creating for television. Well, for Netflix, which is television now for us, you're creating a female hero for this generation that is the star, is the lead of that television show. Because I liked Peggy Carter, or Agent Carter. I did like it. I thought it had a story to tell, but I think they dropped the ball on some elements. I think they backed off on occasion in letting her be the hero. I think sometimes it relied on her to have to rely on men, even though she really didn't need to. It was weird because they bounced back and forth. She had to sneak around and slink around and all this stuff because she couldn't trust her male counterparts, but just because they wouldn't let her play ball with the boys. But then on the other side, she goes to fight in Europe with the Howling Commandos, and she's like tough as nails, and it's like the character you remember from the first Captain America movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
And I find something going back to Doctor Who and how I mentioned Hot Topic and are they going on Disney XD to target a different audience? There was Paul Gilter, I'm pronouncing his name wrong, I know I am, who's Senior Vice President of Marvel Licensing for Disney Consumer Products, talking about Jessica Jones. He goes, we'll be focusing less on products that are targeted at the very young consumer and more on teens and adults with products in stores and outlets like Hot Topic. They are on the money with this. On the money. So, I mean, that's maybe why we're seeing Doctor Who on Disney XD now. The fact that Doctor Who has had merchandise in Hot Topic for years, people see it and go, I wonder what that is. So they go and get on the internet and find out about BBC America. But now, they're like, I'm not going to go seek out the British channel to watch it. So put it on American TV, But no, Doctor Who should never have an American accent. Sorry. It's just...
But if there was a different Time Lord that wasn't the Doctor, that had his own story to tell, would you watch?
But the appeal of the Doctor is that he's it's been established kind of, well, maybe not more so in recent years with the advent of River Song and how much she knows about the Doctor. And there was that episode, The Doctor's Daughter, that kind of gave hints, which led to kind of nowhere. I don't think. I don't know. Like I said, I've stopped watching in recent years, but part of the mystique is that he's the last of his kind. You know, it's kind of
Yeah.
like Superman. He's the last of his kind, except when Zed, who is the master to his Doctor, comes down and fucks with him. It's kind of like that's part of the mystique, is that he's the last of his kind, and the Gallifrey's missing, and the Time War is kind of over, and here we are having adventures with one of a kind. But if they
Right.
wanted to do it, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But how do you tie that in without? How do you got to tie it in with the main series without pissing off the Brits? It's just how it is.
Right.
You have to do it that way. Because if the British sit there and go, oh my God, the Americans have stolen our reality shows and now they're stealing the Doctor, that's where we draw the line. You know, you can't piss off your core audience either. It's kind of like what Ring of Honor going on Sinclair and Destination America, with Jim Cornette coming in. Jim Cornette's like, you're pissing off the core audience by catering to these new people. Same dichotomy. I digress. But anyway, Phil, we're gonna let you go, man. We've been on here for almost 2 hours now. Everybody check him out on Twitter at PSPhenom. Facebook, is it still facebook.com/PSPhenom?
At PSPhenom, yes.
All right, go ahead. And
Twitter and Instagram. On Facebook,
Twitter
it's
and
P-Stamper.
P Stamper. Okay, there we go. I'll put links to all of it down below, guys, in the comments section. For those of you listening on 1640 PWPR, you've heard the interview. You know where to go. Phil, I'd love to keep having you back every couple of weeks. This is awesome. I love the fact that we could jump around so many things besides wrestling.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be on here. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. And everybody, stay tuned for more news, I guess, about HWA here in the next coming months, weeks, whenever he decides to let something out. He's a promoter now. He's going to be sneaky about how he lets things out of the bag. Can we really trust Phil like we used to? I think we can. Anyway, Phil, thank you very much. And New Search Live will be right back. 1640 PWPR, facebook.com/1640 PWPR. We'll be right back to wrap up. This has been a 4-hour show now. So we're going to wrap everything up next. Stay tuned.